What's up? It's Matt. We are in Cleveland, up right next to the water. Another episode of MPTV, the first one on the road in a while because we're doing them all back at the Deep Work Studios. We're here with two gentlemen. I'll let them introduce themselves from Hillcrest Foods. Fellas,
Brian
welcome.
Seitz, how you doing?
I'm amazing, Brian.
And I'm Anthony Hamilton. What's happening, man?
So Brian and Anthony, tell us what your role is at Hillcrest.
I'm the company attorney, but really we buy distributors, and we are lucky and fortunate is that part of my role is to be able to help out local independent restaurants.
Yep. And
that's really what we do. We want to help local independent restaurants succeed and be successful. And one thing that we're seeing in the market is just you have so many national chains that have so much money, have so much expertise in different areas, and they have whole floors in Chicago that just deal on Instagram, or they just deal on whatever aspect of the operation is. So I'm able to go into restaurants, help them maybe with their prime cost, or help them understand their business, or help them with a lease, and really help them be successful for long term. And that's really kind of why I'm blessed, and I'm really fortunate that I'm able to be in such a great organization.
I love it. Love it. I'm glad we don't have an attorney for our team yet, because I'd probably be in deep crap all the time. Anthony, you're the man in the kitchen, right? You're the man throwing knives around?
Yeah. I kind of retired from that, man. I switched to distribution, right? I took the easy way out. But yeah, it's similar to Brian, man. My only focus and my only job at Hillcrest is to help customers. That's it. Free of charge consulting, soup to nuts. I spent my entire career in restaurant operations, jumped the fence a few years ago, and now I just get to go help people make friends. So I can't believe they paid me for it, to be honest with you.
Can't
they
pay
you?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Quite enjoy that.
He's like, well, you get paid.
Just making sure, right? Yeah.
So something I didn't know about Hillcrest till I got up here. Maybe I should have known this already because I've had been around your company for a couple months with a couple podcasts, but I didn't know the same connection was independence.
All independence. So
only independence.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset, and the business model for the large chains is different than it is for a local independent. So you'll have one of the national distributors, they're selling to the national chains at 10, 11, 12% over cost.
Yeah.
And then guess what? They report to Wall Street 19%.
Yeah, where they're making the difference up on the independents.
It's the only place they're making the difference up. So they're beating up on the local independents. They're beating up on your neighbor. They're beating up on your friend that you love to go to his restaurant. So what we do is we just level the playing field. Like, you're not going to do that. We're going to sell you at a reasonable price, much less than the other guys, and provide you with the services that no one else is providing with you, typically for free. So we really just want you to be successful. We want you to be successful at your sport, and we help them do that.
I love it. So you were on the operations side.
Yeah, man. Whole life.
Coming to this side of the table where you're working with the restaurants, you mentioned, something that's near and dear to my heart is Outspend or Outsmart. Mm-hmm. It's a book I'm working on for next year, 2024. No, 2023. I got the years wrong. The pandemic got me all jacked up on years.
Everybody. But
you mentioned, they don't have the independents don't have the luxury of the fourth floor in Chicago of 35 people that do Instagram for the restaurants. And what's funny though is honestly, those corporate marketing departments traditionally suck. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
They have no ability they're not nimble. They have no ability to think outside the box. Everything has been workshopped. Everything's been put through a focus group. And it's the exact opposite of a local independent restaurant. It's sanitized.
You take the human out of the equation.
Yeah, you do. You take all the feelings, you take all the things that I love about local independent restaurants is that the origin story, or the person came to America in or first or second generation and built something from nothing and is sharing their community and their food with the community. Yep. It's really amazing.
Sounds cheesy, but you taste it and you feel it in the ambiance too. Oh, yeah. It's like a warm hug, right? It's not a cold, kind of environment. Like it's embracing. But as you know, man, the independent's significantly different than corporation. And listen, we need the corporations, the backbone of the economy in a lot of aspects, but the independents serve the same purpose.
What's been an eye opener for you the last? You said 2 years now that you've been on this side of the table.
No, 5 now.
Oh, 5 years.
Oh, jeez, no, 6. I started in 2016. My God, pandemic.
Jeez,
hit fast forward. Yeah, so 6 years. Biggest eye opener for me is this is going to sound funny, but like the adversarial role I used to have against my distributors. Right. And we talk about consulting with independent restaurants. I think you shared something the other day. It was like the 4 thieves of food costs or something. Someone wrote an article on LinkedIn, and one of them was treat your distributor like a partner. Yep. I never did that. I was a chef. I beat up my staff. I beat up my distributors. It was, every man for themselves. I didn't let people like Brian and myself come into my restaurant and embrace them, for ideas or for nurturing or for education, any of that. I treated them like, okay, if I bring them in, they're going to get me on cost, or they're going to do this or do that. So that to me, you talk about regret. I jumped over there and realized like for 20 years, I misplayed my hand as a customer of a distributor. And we see it all the time. And I went with the big box guys and they just let me do my thing and they charge me and charge me and charge me. It was an eye opener to say the least. And it was a punch to the stomach is what it was.
And that's similar on the marketing side. Like I mentioned you guys in the podcast, there's a lot of restaurants that it's an adversarial relationship. They're always trying to sell me something. It's like, you know what? And granted, a lot of salespeople in any industry are bad salespeople, but find the ones that are good, create relationships. Like I had a client of mine, I'll never forget, back when I was selling radio back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that the third year he called me up and said, bro, I finally found a way to do business with you. We had went golfing 20 times. I was trained relationships and I liked the guy. And I'm like, hey, he's like, why do you keep coming around? I'm like, because I think you're a cool guy. You got a really badass business. I said, at some point, you're going to meet somebody who needs me or you're going to need me. And I said, at the worst case, you got an ear to bounce stuff off of. And that's what kills me the most. The same thing is when I run across a restaurant, like I've got an operator named Casey. He's actually the marketing director. They have a brand called Be Good Temecula out in California. They have a sidecar wine business. They have some other amusement properties that we work with. And he calls me or texts me probably every couple of weeks like, bro, you got 5 minutes. I want to hop on a call and bounce something off you. And I love it. I love hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? I had a client recently call me and ask me like, what did I think about the colors of their graphics on their doors? I love that stuff. We should be sticky. I'm the smartest. I have no problem saying it. I'm the smartest person you're going to meet with restaurant marketing. You might not like my arrogance. There might be some certain things. As we get to know each other, you'll love me or my staff. But you should have relationships with your vendors that are deep like that, like not scared you're going to buy something.
Well, listen, this is what we always have to remember too. And people talk to me about my job. They're like, that's crazy. The company would pay you with no ROI. You just go out, you create stickiness, make friends, help people with problems. Truth is, in your role too, you don't succeed or make money if your customers don't succeed or make money. This isn't a one-stop shop exploitation. Here, grab my good and take off and we'll never see each other again. We got to deal with you 3 times a week when we're dropping off food.
No, but also we know you. I know your kids. I know your wife. I know your front of house manager. It's the humanity. It's back in business.
You're taking the work out of work, man.
At this level. And you want them to be successful. You want them to buy a second home. You want them to put the kid through college. You want them to be able to pay for the dance lessons and not be just crushed by the system, by some big corporate distributor who is just trying to, again, make up that money because they had to give it away to the Cheesecake Factory.
They had to sell their soul.
Because the Cheesecake Factory is a better negotiator than you'll ever be because they have the scale, they have the volume. At the end of the day, it's how many people can we help? And what is going to be my legacy? What is going to be the legacy of the company? And how many people can I get in front of and make their life a little bit better?
Do good and you do well, man.
Well, yeah, and it's whether selfishly or what, but like it fills up my cup. It makes me feel better.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about here is the amazing model that we deal with, right? So it's you put the customer first, you put the individuals first, and it all comes back to the company eventually through lack of turnover, through successful sales, whatever the case may be. But the motives are a little bit different, and it's a really pure way to do business. I absolutely love it, man.
Serve the customer, serve the company, and you always do good.
Yeah, no question.
Now, let's talk about something that's near and dear to me because you mentioned a minute ago.
Yeah.
So you mentioned origin story. And so one of our parts of our company is America's Best Restaurants and Media Company, where restaurants hire us to come out. We usually do 8 to 10 restaurants per van. We have 2 vans right now. And like today, they're in Owensboro, Kentucky, where they go out and we film a micro episode. You got, diners, drive-ins, and dives, which is there because, guys got a $40+ million contract and it's a TV show that sells advertising and it has millions of viewers. We're creating America's Best Restaurants, the media side, not for us to get millions of viewers, but for us to help capture the story of that restaurant on video.
Yeah.
Because it was like the other day, I was talking to a lady, restaurant in Tennessee, and she's telling me the story about how Chicago, how her mom and dad came over from Italy and immigrated over, had her and her brother, and they were little tiny, and they started this pizza restaurant, and here it is today. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. She said, what? I said, I'm on your website. I'm on Facebook, number 1. There's nothing on here that says anything about this. Number 2, I'm on your website, and that awesome story you just told me in 5 minutes over the phone on a Zoom call is put in 2 sentences in a picture.
Yeah.
Your story deserves more.
And it's compelling.
So much more.
Yeah. It's attractive. Here I am sitting here like, tell me more. I will never go to this restaurant, most likely. I have no interest in it, but still the story is very compelling to me. I think it's just a case in point for you, man.
And that's what the local independent has over the national chain.
Yeah.
The the Fazoli's, 100th unit is never going to be as authentic as what you just said. And like, that's so cool. Like, I love that.
You have Fazoli's up here?
Yeah.
So that's from Kentucky. They're located out Lexington, Kentucky. They have one location in Florence near my house. It's a terrible location. Like, I'm not, scale of 1 to 10, like I walk in, when I look at things, like I noticed when I walked in the kitchen area to get the water, how the paint on the door frame is scuffed off.
Yeah,
It's a high-end building.
Too,
like I notice weird things because I'd like to fix them at our place. Mm-hmm. But like this Fazoli's, they've been putting pig on a lipstick for years. And it cracks me up because I know the brand is located 45 minutes south of us, the headquarters. They have no footprint in our own region. Mm-hmm. And the store looks like shit that's near me. And I just crack up when you say that's a different story. But
that's, think about that. That's their flagship store, essentially.
You would think so.
It's in their backyard.
Yeah. It cracks me up because it's the only one around. And I grew up on Fazoli's because we had one at Morehead State's campus, and they had all-you-can-eat breadsticks and a $3.99 student special.
They call it special.
And I would go there on Fridays my big brother was an offensive lineman. I'll never forget the first day I go there, and I look at this stack of like a log cabin of breadsticks, and I go to grab one, and he smacks my hand. I'm like, "What? Those are for us? Those are for me. Get away. Go get your own, freshman." I'm like, you're going to eat like 40 breadsticks? And that's when I saw a 350-pound college offensive lineman throw down. Like, Fazoli's lost a lot of money.
Yeah, try to put it out of business.
Food costs us out of line. Like, what? We can't figure it out. It's like,
but you go back to that, and it's kind of comical because my team, we have 11 people on the sales capacity, 9 on that part of it, and there's 4 of them that spend their days calling restaurants and saying, "Hey, want to set up a conversation with one of our executive producers?" Because we don't pick everybody. Yeah. If you're a shitty looking restaurant that hasn't invested in pressure washing your front sidewalk, you don't have a good sign, you don't have awesome reviews, and we can look at your building and tell you that you're probably a year from going out of business, we're not going to come interview you.
Yeah, what's the point?
But if you aren't that, like we went to a place called the 10, what was it called? The 10 Coop? 10.
I thought it was the copper coop.
Okay, something like that. We'll have to look at it. But in Tennessee, and the story behind the restaurant, how her and her husband opened it. They have a recycling company in town. The entire building and everything's built out of recycled materials from the local economy.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
the
awesome.
live edge tables, and unbelievable. And the 10 Coop, I think is what it's called. Because I also talked to a Copper Cup restaurant the other day. They have Penny Bar, really cool. But the lady was telling me the same thing here. She has 2019 pennies on this bar. All from the year 2019 except for 2 of them. And then 2 of them, one is upside down and one's facing the opposite direction. She spent all that time because their goal was to open that restaurant in 2019. Yeah. It didn't open until 2021 because of the pandemic.
But we already got the pennies.
Yeah, but they had it all that. It's a really cool bar. But like,
so cool.
There's these cool stories. There's these personalities. And
No. What about the 2 pennies? Like, you can't just gloss over that.
One of them's backwards and one's upside down.
Yeah, why?
Just to see if people find them, because that's their thing.
Gotcha.
Hey,
okay.
come in. Tell us if you can find the penny.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they do a contest with that, but I'm like, that's the cool shit that separates you from McDonald's. Like, the reason I went to Barleycorns during the pandemic, a local restaurant near us, was because I knew the Heil family owned it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know people that work there, and I know that my dollar is going to go more local there.
Yep.
Than it does to the person that owns like Arby's in our region, owned by a company called RMI, and I think last time I heard they had like 200 locations. Yeah. Me not going to Arby's isn't crushing their soul.
Right.
Me not going to Barleycorns could crush their soul.
Yeah.
You want to keep more money in your local community, frequent, and only go to local independent restaurants.
And consumers need to know those stories. And so, like, I know you guys educate independents. Like, the one thing I would ask, like, when you go in and consult with them, look at their website and say, "Hey, man, your mom and dad migrated over here from Italy in 1947. This restaurant's been open since 1953. You and your brother run it now. I think it deserves more than 2 sentences in a picture of mom and dad, brother."
Listen, I'm actually doing that with Hillcrest right now. I met with the owners last week and had them tell because they have this incredibly captivating American dream story, grit to glory, like you wouldn't believe. We weren't always a big, we're not a huge company. We're a nice sized company, especially independently owned and operated. And no one's ever told the story before. And I'm like, my God, like the employees need to know, the customers need to know, everybody needs to know this story.
Well, here's how it needs to be told. I'll give you one tip. And
What's
this
that?
is not a sales pitch, but this is literally what we have found. A story told with just the people involved is different than a story told to somebody asking. So like when we do with America's Best Restaurants, our big goal, like Luis is on the road today. Luis, the credibility of America's Best Restaurants to that independent restaurant. And then Luis saying, "Tell me about your restaurant. I looked online. I've seen this." It's like when you're on 60 Minutes. Mm-hmm. Anybody could buy I mean, it probably costs a lot of money, but could buy an hour slot on NBC or whatever station that's on at night and do a video about their company. But it wouldn't resonate as much as if it's by somebody being interviewed, by somebody of stature, by somebody that either has stature or a perceived stature. Because it's a lot different when I'm bragging and telling my story than when I had an interview the other day where somebody interviewed me and said, hey, this is the best restaurant marketing guy I've ever met. I love his down to earth. I love this, this, and this. Matt, tell me this. Well, now I'm answering questions.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, not if, because you'll do it, when you do it, figure out a way that story can be told with somebody else that maybe is a tie to the Cleveland area, maybe is a former newscaster, maybe it's a former radio person, or maybe it's somebody like me that just knows how to interview people and get a story out.
Yeah, it's that push versus pull thing, right?
Yeah.
Much more organic when someone's pulling it out of you.
I love it.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip, man. I will definitely capitalize on that. I assure you.
But the restaurants are great too. I think the restaurants, everybody assumes, like, especially a lot of the employees.
Yeah.
They assume that the person that owns this restaurant's a millionaire.
You do that with your company, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The people only see you in the split moment today. They didn't see you 12 years ago when you're bootstrapping it.
Yeah.
Right?
The one thing I will do, I tell them a lot.
There you go.
I have videos. I have a video on my website that is me, early days of Orange, with the Kramer picture in the background. When our employee gets hired at our company, they have a series of videos they go through and books they read. And part of it is in there about how I got my start. Mm-hmm. Like this book here talks about, I want to say it's in the first chapter of my story. It's like, hey, if you read anything, read that 4 or 5 pages. Understand me and my dad. There's the boat and motor deal. Understand where we started, why we did this.
Yeah.
To know that I wasn't silver spooned.
Right.
It's like I was listening to, what interview was that? Where they asked the guy, I was listening to an interview yesterday, and they asked the guy, said, it was Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey was interviewing a guy that's semi-retired who's got $7 million in savings, or in all his portfolio. And he's like, going through the numbers. I don't know if you listen to Dave Ramsey, and he's like, okay, how much did you inherit? The guy laughed. He said, none. Tell me your story. And the guy told him his story, how he started working at a wood mill company making $2 an hour back in the 60s, and then worked up to buying the wood mill. And it was a really cool story. But your customers need to know it. Your employees need to know it. Your vendors need to know it. This is our vivid vision. There's a book by Cam Harrell called Vivid Vision where you write out what you're going to be in 3 years. Because 10 years is hard to look at.
Yeah.
3 years, we can all remember what happened 2 years ago in March. Yeah. So 3 years is easy to look forward. And so I've literally got in here where we're going to be in Vegas when we celebrate this. Our software, our marketing program, our van, our vision with the interviews. That's actually Luis on there interviewing.
Awesome.
Our team, our culture. I want to own a restaurant. I want to own a restaurant called Just the Starters. It's going to be a 50s themed diner. It's going to have 3 flavors of milkshakes and 10 appetizers.
And that's it.
That's it.
Love it.
It's going to be simplistic. It's going to be easy to execute. The menu items are going to encourage you to either say something that the server would say, that's what she said. So, for example, our fries, I'm a big Michael Scott fan. Our fries, like one of the orders of fries is going to be, hey, what size fries do you want? That's gigantic. That's what she said.
There you go.
And then everything, the other items, like, for example, the cheese logs I want to have. The cheese logs are going to be a pair. It's going to be Beaufadis. So you can make the connection there. So I want to have fun with it. I want to be different. I want to be unique. I want to be something that people will have a kick out of and have a laugh with.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
But I also want to have a place that we can have a proving ground to say, hey, I'm not only a restaurant marketing company that works with hundreds of restaurants. I'm one that puts my money where my mouth is. Yeah. And when our employees see this, when our vendors, when restaurants that I deal with, I meet with restaurants, I take this and I say, read this. This is our vivid vision. And they go, dude, are you insane? You're going to open a restaurant in a year and a half? And I'm like, yeah. Because I want to live what you're living, and I don't want to come in here and say, hey, do this, this will work. I want to say, do this, here's the proof.
Right.
Not only 20 of our clients, but here's my restaurant, and here's how we went from selling this many chocolate chip cookies to this many.
It's so different, man, when you don't have to take someone's word for it, right? Yep. And you're given high-level consultation at a nice price tag, and people can take it or leave it. But when you got that case study behind you, it's indisputable at that point in time. You don't even have to brag anymore. You're just like, hey, check this out. Just go see for yourself. Enough hot air, right? Yep. It's a beautiful thing, man. I love that.
When you're talking about your story and your dad and you and your brother doing the boat dealership, do you think that uniquely prepared you for the coronavirus, the downturn?
Oh, big time.
Because I know it did me.
It did big time because I could literally I remember no shit when 2018 happened or 2008 happened. I got goosebumps thinking about this. Yeah. I remember sitting at a stoplight, tell my wife, like, I don't know, like, do we go to jail? Like, we're closed. I don't know what that means. We're closing a business with $7 million in inventory on a lot.
Right.
And I had no collect. We didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
No, but
we owe a lot of people money. We owe Integra Bank $1 million. Bank of the West $3.4 million. We have GE has a $1.6 million lien on this property. We went from a $15 million a year boat dealership to within 30 days of the collapse in 08 to literally doing $48,000 July of 08 from $1.4 million.
Staggering, man.
my clients back then were a lot of construction guys.
Yeah, so you know it.
And they had developments and they're fully leveraged. And I had one guy tell me, he goes, I had called the phone company because I thought my phone was not working. He goes, one day it was like the light shut off. Everything's economic activity stopped. And that just reminded me so much of the pandemic and how to act fast and what to do. And back to the restaurants, it's like, that's how restaurants survived, is that they pivoted so quickly and they mastered carry out. They mastered to go. They mastered third-party delivery. They mastered online ordering. It was really, really
Dude, I wonder where that came from. Because, when the pandemic first hit, Brian sent out a PSA and you gave step-by-step instructions for everybody close to our company on exactly what to do to brace for the impact. And I'm like,
I saw it.
Obviously, I know you're smart, but I'm like, dude, how did you know this? And now it all makes sense. You just close the circle on
my
me.
construction guys. The guys who tried to stay in it the longest, instead of making the move,
lost the most.
They lost the most.
Well, same with us. We were sitting there, and one of the first things I regret too is I remember sitting there because I had already started my agency. Yeah. I had already had a consulting gig with the Reds and Bengals. I was financially fine.
Oh, you were doing both of that.
That's it, because we had decided to sell the dealership.
Oh, so you were already in that process?
Yeah, we decided. It was kind of comical. So go back to the story. So December of 2017, me and my dad are identical. Like scary as shit, except for the 30 years age gap. We are 100% identical.
It's funny.
So we would go.
You always get one kid like that. My daughter's like that. My son, my other two daughters, not like that.
We would go into business meetings and we would sit down. I'd be gone for a week out of town on business travel. He'd be running a dealership. I'd walk in and we'd have our top 10. That was always our thing. Plays of the week, top 10 plays, top 10. 9 of the 10 would be exact. And I would never forget Michelle Schmidt was our accountant, which ironically, she works for the company Kona Ice that's actually in our old building.
I know Kona Ice.
Yeah, so they're in our old headquarters.
So funny, beginning of the pandemic, we paid them to come out to my house and serve, shave ice to our kids. Yeah.
Well, the guy that I know him, he had one van, he brought it up on my house, and I thought he was crazy, and it turned out he was pretty smart. But
it worked out well.
They're actually we had a 7-acre boat dealership with a 13,000 square foot building. Kona Ice is in there now. They bought it from the bank, which we gave it back to. But Michelle would come in these meetings and she'd say, bullshit, you guys compared your lists. I'm like, no, I hadn't talked to Dad in 5 days.
Yeah.
And our lists were identical. So we're sitting there Christmas 2007. And it was like, how they have those interventions for drug and alcohol. Ours was a business intervention. It was my brother, my wife, his wife, my mom and dad. And my wife and my mom go, you guys going to tell each other? I'm like, what? She's like, you guys seriously don't know? And both like, what? That neither one of you want to do the boat dealership anymore. And I look at my dad, and I hadn't told him because I thought he loved it. He hadn't told me. He goes, I fucking hate it. And we had gotten to a point where because this was enough. You think about it too. Like when I think back, the stress level, we had grown the dealership. Had we grown it with more profit and cash correctly, we would have been fine. But we grew it with bank money. I'll never forget being at Skeeter.
That's the nature of the business.
I was in Skeeter Bass Boat's annual convention at Branson, Missouri, and we had a $300,000 line of credit, and this was about 2004. And at that point, we weren't overcapitalized. We weren't over leveraged. And we had $300,000 line of credit. I had $120,000 available. And guy walks up, our Skeeter rep, and he's like, so Matt, what do you think? I'm like, man, I think we'll probably get 2 of those. I don't know if you've ever been if you're a bass boat guy, you walk into a convention center and it's 100 Skeeters, every color, every
I'm scared
make,
to go to those places.
Everything. Unbelievable. And so it's like a boat show for dealers. And you're expected to buy your quantity so they can pace the factory for the whole year. And I'm like, I think we're going to go with those 3 boats. What do you mean those 3? You're going to sell 20 this year, right? I'm like, yeah, but we only have $100 and something thousand on our line of credit. Walk with me. Walk over. GE Capital's there, which was a big partner of Yamaha and Skeeter and G3 boats. And hey, this is Matt Plapp. Their business is doing $4.5 million right now. They're on pace if they had money to do $10 million plus. They're a client of yours. They only have $300,000 on their line of credit. How's $3 million, Matt? I go, and I'm like, at that time, let's say 2005. I'm late 20s. No fucking clue how to run a business. I was good at marketing, good at selling. No clue anything else. Everybody I ever hired got fired because I was a terrible boss. And I hired people that looked like me and acted like me. And then I'm like, this guy's an idiot. But because you can't work with yourself.
Yeah, of course.
And so we're sitting there and she's like, we'll go ahead and we'll up you to $3 million. And I'm like, $3 million what? What do you mean? She's like, you'll go from $300,000 line of credit to $3 million. And he's like, cool, Matt, you can buy whatever you want. So what the hell I do? I bought every fucking boat on the floor. I'm like, give me 3 of those, 2 of those.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2007. The economy collapsed, if I remember correctly, it was like August 6, 2008. I want to say it was about when it came out. Mm-hmm. We felt it in June and July, big time. So, but we felt it even more the year before because it went from GE calling us every month to say, hey, man, how are things going? We see you got 30 boats on floor plan. What do you got planned on selling? What are you going to pay down? All this to every day. Mm-hmm. And I got to a point where Thursday nights, we did payroll every Friday. Thursday nights, I had to fall asleep on the sofa. Because I didn't know if we were making payroll every week. Because it got to a point where the payroll making it, and then also the banks calling, and the stress level was enormous. I used to pressure wash the parking lot in the dealership because I couldn't hear my phone.
Yeah,
and that was the only way GE could reach me, or Textron, or Bank of the West, or Integra, or Fifth Third. It was a nightmare, and I didn't see the hand. I didn't know the writing on the wall was they had over leveraged themselves. And so they were being told by the government, like U.S. Bank was our biggest lender on boat loans. Come June of 2008, they had been told by the government, you cannot give a loan.
Wow.
Yeah.
On boats. Like there's no option.
Because they wouldn't pass the stress
test
at the time.
So 2007, in December, me and my dad both realized this, and we said, you went out. I want to go back to marketing. I've got a lot of opportunities. These guys from the Reds and Bengals keep bugging me. I want to go do my marketing agency. I can do things. No, we were like, my first client was Bard's Burgers, helping them with Facebook ads and Facebook marketing in 2008. Like that's old school. That's old school. Like nobody. Like people thought I was crazy. Adam Perkins from Masterpiece Audio Video came in, sat me down, and was right near Bard's. He knew who I was. We had some common friends. He trusted what we had done, and he's like, "So you think we should be on Facebook?" I'm like, yeah. He's like my young daughter's on that. I'm like, bro, it's there. Yeah. And he's like, I don't think you're right, but I trust you, so go have fun. Paid me $600 a month. That's how I started. But so we had decided, we hired a wind down specialist in January, February that year, and his goal was to come in and wind it down. Because if you come out and say we're closing, you can't sell a boat and RV dealership because the contracts aren't sellable.
Right.
So if you're a Triton or Skeeter dealership and I sell it to you, and Skeeter the next day says, I don't like this guy, he's got an orange shirt on, they cancel the contract, you just bought something that doesn't exist.
Right.
So for that reason, it was hard to sell, not that it is anymore, but back then it was. So we hired a specialist to come in and wind the business down, and our goal was by October of that year, we'd have everything gone, we had them the order for the next year, we'd each walk away with about 1.5 to 2.2 million in cash. The property was estimated at $3 million. We had 1.6 in it with GE. We had an awesome piece of property, middle of Florence, prime everything. Well, July comes around. I went back to doing my thing April, May, June, July was when I ramped everything up. My dad went to 3 days a week. My brother was holding down the fort. We turn around, and July, it's gone. Like literally,
down for you, huh?
I think it was 1.4 million, 1.478 was our sales, July of 2007. I remember the numbers because it just scared the shit out of me. Yeah. And we did like 48 grand, July of 2008. Wow. And I'm sitting there going, Dad, can you give me like 300 grand and I'll put 300 grand in and we can pay the bills this month? Cause like maybe we took our eyes off the ball. We lost our focus. And what really triggered, I'll never forget this conversation, was I happened to come to the dealership. I'm wearing my suit, which was, all the employees, we hadn't told the employees what was happening because we told them to get out. And then the economy's collapsing on top of that. We didn't know that. I come in, this guy's buying a boat. He's got an 800 credit score. He makes $300K a year. He's got zero debt. He's got $500,000 in 401K. It was called over-the-curb lending. With this guy walked in normal circumstances, we check off a box. We say, U.S. Bank will do your loan. Here's your rate. We knew everything.
Get your trailer hitched.
Yeah, go. And it was gone.
Yeah,
U.S. Bank calls and says, hey, can you put it on speaker? We were talking to the customer. My dad's like, what? Yeah, put it on the speaker. Okay. Sir, why do you want to buy a boat?
What? What the hell do you mean?
What? Yeah, why do you think you need a boat with gas prices right now? And we're like, what? Like, what's going on here? And so what was happened was U.S. Bank had been told by the government they couldn't do boat loans. They couldn't do these type of loans. Yeah. And so they didn't want to go to the dealers and go, guys, we're out of the game, because it would signal the
same
collapse.
thing you were doing. Yeah.
They couldn't do that. And then they also didn't want to lose their spot in the Rolodex, so when it opened back up, the people we were dealing with probably thought it was a temporary thing.
Oh, no, we all thought it was.
So they were just trying to talk out of the sale?
So,
we thought it was a dip.
Yeah.
Everyone thought it was just an economic dip, and that's why guys held on so long, because they thought it was a
Yeah.
dip, and it wasn't.
It wasn't. And so that the best advice we got, so that was July. August comes, we got our ass kicked even worse, and we decided we're done. Well, we hadn't decided yet, so we put a plan together. My dad's not a quitter, neither am I. We put a plan together. We were going to strip the company down to payroll. We're going to build back up. And it was the greatest sales pitch ever. We're sitting with our attorney, Dennis Williams. I appreciate he did this. He looks at my dad and he goes, guys, why aren't you quitting? What do you mean? He's like, it's done. I'm just telling you. You think what you have is a big problem? I've got 10 car dealerships that can buy and sell you 100 times that are completely effed. Yep. He's like, the difference is that car dealers, manufacturers, going to get bailed out probably. Yeah. Somehow you aren't.
Right.
Close the doors. And we're like, no. We got $1.5 million equity in the building. We got $1 million in inventory paid for in cash. We got these liabilities. We can do this, and this. And he goes, Matt, you got your shit. I get it. You'll kill it doing it. He's like, but Dwayne, you're probably right, Dwayne. Like, what, you need to make 6 figures to pay your bills, don't you? And he goes, yeah, at your age, you can't make 6 figures anymore. And he goes, fuck you. I can make 6 figures tomorrow. Good. Quit the dealership. And my dad goes, oh, I got what you did there. And my dad said, okay, we're done. And so we all had to sign off and I wasn't signing off because I knew my dad wanted it. And it was a hard thing for him because he was a failure now. Yep. And everybody in Northern Kentucky looked at us like we had guys sending us threatening texts like, I don't have anywhere to get my boat worked on now, jackass. Like, my warranty, I don't know where to take this. And I'm like, I just lost $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, my dad is not broke, but is in a very bad place. Yeah. My mom, I'll never forget, my mom calls me and she's talking about getting a job. And I said, what are you doing? She goes, I'm going to get a job because I know we got to make more money. You're in your 60s. You just lost 80% of your nest egg. And you he'd put in like $500,000-$600,000 that summer to try and save what he thought was a bump. Yeah. And I said, Mom, do you think I'm a deadbeat? She goes, excuse me? I go, do you think I'm a deadbeat? She goes, no. I go, I know what your expenses are. I knew the number back then was $4,800. I knew it because me and my dad were that close. I'm getting a little cold here. I said, Mom, I can make you $4,800. I said, you're not getting a job. I said, so shut up and do your thing. I said, because I can make you $5,000 a month. You supported me for 22 years. I'll support you for 40.
There you go.
And so, yeah, I can relate to the pandemic because when those conversations are real, and that hurt me. And so when the pandemic hit, I called a lot of our customers and said, hey, I'm not an advertising sales guy. I'm not a marketing guy. I got my ass kicked in 2008. So whatever you need, we will do. We called it the restaurant marketing bailout. Colonial Cottage was a restaurant in Erlanger, Kentucky. Sean Bale had 2 Mellow Mushrooms in Cincinnati. We will work whatever you want for free. And we did it for, I think, 70 or 80 restaurants. It took us up on it. A lot of them hung up on us, which was comical.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, probably.
Oh, yeah, Sean, who owns the Mellow Mushroom in Wilder, Kentucky, and in Westchester, Ohio. Well, if you call him today and ask him, why did you not close during a pandemic? I can guarantee he'll say, Matt Blapp's company.
Yeah.
And the sad part about that is Mellow Mushroom, 8 months in, corporate called and gave us a cease and desist, stop working with our client. I'm like, your client on video and an email has told you we're the reason he's open. We worked with him for free. What am I cease and desisting?
Yeah.
Are you morons?
Yeah.
And so, when you ask that question, to me, it ties back deep. Because I saw what my mom and dad went through, and I remember having that conversation with my mom, I got you. I can make an extra $100K pretty easily. I'm confident. I know how to make money. I don't know how to keep it very well, but I know how to make it. Yeah. And I said, so if I got to pay you, my dad is on my payroll now. My dad's a business consultant. He's a freaking genius, but he's on my payroll now for the reason that, 1, he helps my company, and 2, I know it takes stress off my mom that he can have a little money coming in here and there. And my goal is to get him to where he's one of the highest paid employees in my company in the next couple of years so that their retirement is 0 questions because I know the value he brings to my life.
Yeah.
But I can relate to the restaurants to go back to that story because I had been there. And a lot of people hadn't been there. And it's scary as shit.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. You said you slept on a sofa. It's like I'm surprised you slept, right?
It was brutal. I mean, because I never forget. I would send out an email to our team. Go, okay, guys, what do you got coming in this week? I got this deal, and this deal. This guy's bringing a check, and that was the big thing. In Northern Kentucky, I joked about the Ohio part. Is that earlier? Is that if somebody from Cincinnati came in and said they're buying a boat with cash the next day, they'd call you the next day when they're 15 minutes late for the meeting and go, well, I found one in Washington for $50 less. Kentuckian, when the Kentuckian said, I'll be in tomorrow with a check, he's in tomorrow with a check. Okay, well then, we'll do it $50 less. Okay, cool, I'll be in tomorrow with a check. Well, then he'd come in tomorrow with the paperwork. No, I'm getting a loan against my 401k. So the check's coming in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we always dealt with those cash flows. So I'll never forget, like every other week at least, it was because we were just over leveraged. Our floor plan, we had $250,000 some month in interest payments on floor plan. And looking back, I didn't get it then. I didn't understand a profit and loss statement. But when you got $1.4 million coming in, you got $1 million in overhead, and then you've got $250,000 in inventory costs like that at interest. But then you also have what's called curtailments, where if a boat has a birthday, which is 12 months, you have to pay 10% of the principal down. Well, when you got $6 million in inventory and $2 million of it's on a birthday, and now you got to write GE and Textron a $200,000 check on top of the $225,000, you just lost $100,000 that month. And I could never figure it out because I just wasn't smart enough back then. I didn't have the business acumen. We started a bootstrap boat dealership that grew to $15 million like that.
Yeah.
Your growth killed you.
And our growth completely crushed us. But it taught me, I've later learned I've got like 10 master's degrees in real life shit. Because now I completely get it.
Definitely in cash flow.
Yeah, and cash flow. Cash flow is king.
Yeah. And not just cash flow, but also inventory management.
Yeah.
And we see that with restaurants and when they buy a bunch of stuff and it's like, man, you're going to burn through that in 3 weeks. Like, your prime costs are going to be shit this week. So what are you doing to turn your inventory and make sure that's making you money and there's not a bunch of sins in the freezer?
Yeah, in our world, the birthday means you throw it away, right? You pay down the principal, you
Yeah.
throw it away.
But same
It's a complete loss. Yeah.
But yeah, that was tough because we would have those projection weeks where we got 480 coming in this week. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, $480,000, cool. I got this, and this. Okay, cool. Well, then it comes to Thursday night and payroll the next day, $68,000. And that 480 actually turned into 280 because 2 guys are backed out and 2 guys, the checks in the mail and this kind of shit. And I'm like, oh my God, like how do I, and somehow I always figured it out. And
but it takes years off your life. And
the
stress and the chest pains and all of that. Like, it's
and that's what the restaurants, what they had their asses kicked during the pandemic, where I kind of go and they had it worse. I mean, they had it worse. They had it better. They had it better because there was no bailout. Yeah. Like we actually went to court. I'll never forget this. I didn't go because I couldn't stomach it. My dad went. We were. It wasn't a suit yet. It was arbitration by Bank of the West, and they were one of our floor plan lenders. And they came in, and we were in court. Boone County Judge Gary Moore, because I'll never forget this. It was funny.
Boone County?
Yeah, Boone County, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Funny as shit. And he walks in, and we're there. My dad's there with our attorney, and Bank of the West is over here. And Gary Moore holds the newspaper up and says, "Read the paper today?" "Excuse me? Did you read the paper today, sir? You're the attorney for Bank of the West, right?" "Yeah." "Did you read the paper today?" "No, I can't say I did." "Why?" "Front page. There's 4 banks listed in the bailout. It says Bank of the West it was like something like $4.3 billion. "Well, what's that have to do with this, sir?" "You got that money because companies like this fell apart because the economy fell apart. Dismissed. Don't ever come back to my courtroom again. You got your money."
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And he was right because Bank of the West was given money by the government because of the economy failures, which trickled down. Why should they get it double?
No, that's what they're doing there.
Yeah, and so like what I see that I like that happened this past time, and it probably will be a sins we pay for a while, is the fact because I got money. My company got, our revenue got the shit count. We have 58% revenue gone in 1 month.
We lost 70% in 1 day.
Yeah. You know what it's like. And plus you guys had people probably on 30-day terms.
Not a ton.
Okay, so a lot of people had people on term. Like we had 50, 60% of our revenue gone, and we were on a pace. We were killing it. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I was smart enough and dumb enough to say, hey, we're not laying anybody off. We're going to eat it, but we're going to help as many people as possible. And we did. And by July, August, we had grown. We're now like 5 times bigger than we were 2 years ago. But it was interesting to see because there was PPP, there was idle money. It's cheap as can be. But the other side of it was there was also the consumer money that crushed the workforce. Mm-hmm. That put that owner that, he got PPP money. He can pay the bills. Yeah, he can do this. But guess what? He can't see his damn wife and kids. Yeah. Because he's working 100 hours a week dealing with jackass customers who are on unemployment and at the restaurant complaining that there's no service because there's no workers because your dumb ass is on the sofa making more money than you are working. Mm-hmm. And so that's the part I couldn't relate with because we were able to walk away from it. We lost a lot of money. We regrouped. But the restaurants, man, they got just... of any business out there, I would have to say, because I own a gym, I just sold out of a gym 2 months ago, so I had a gym during the whole pandemic. We actually did fine because we pivoted and did at-home workouts and online workouts and loaned the equipment out and did some cool stuff. That was an industry that was hit hard, but the restaurants, I mean, they not only got they didn't pull up and put light a bag of poop on your front porch on fire and you stepped in it, they came and like dumped 10 portalets on top of your roof and lit the house on fire.
Yeah, it wasn't very fun.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't great. You know, being a consultant at that time was really tough, right?
No,
I'm sure you can attest to that as well.
Yeah, and you know, Hillcrest did the same thing. We didn't fire anybody, and you know, we laid off some drivers because we had to.
Yeah, they would have done the deliver.
Yeah, but the staff stayed together, but we were just going just restaurant owner to restaurant owner, and like they just need someone to talk to. Like they need like just like what do you do? And I always tell a story like, you know, you have the guy call you up and I'm telling you, you gotta lay these people off. You gotta lay them off. It's like you're closed. You're fine dining. It's like, no, but Jim, my bartender's been with me for 30 years. I can't lay him off. I was like, no, you don't understand. You need to lay him off. It was like such an emotional thing.
Yep.
And that's what I love about the restaurant industry. Like local independent restaurateurs love their staff. They love people, and they're in the hospitality business. And it was just gut wrenching to watch.
Hell, that's why we doubled down on the podcast even.
Yeah.
There's that need for communication. I remember everybody's like, the PPP money came out, no one knew what it meant.
I know.
We got our CFO on a Zoom call and was like, listen, just break it down. You step by step, simplify this process so people freaking understand it, man.
Yeah.
You know?
We were on the disaster response team, and we're just talking to restaurant owners from morning till night. And I'm like, and again, guys are crying on the phone to me and are having these gut wrenching moments. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, you know, tell your landlord to F off, like stop paying rent, like cash is king. Like, again, probably not great advice for everything, but it definitely, it was moves that they needed to make.
Listen, it kept the heart beating,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think in a rescue situation, you do CPR before anything else, right? Like, that's it. And you keep doing it until then once you get your heartbeat back, then you can sort the shit out. But if you don't have a heartbeat, you're not alive.
Yep.
Period.
Totally agree.
Man, that question pulled some shit out of me. I don't think I've ever told
Yeah,
that story.
I'm over here lost in thought too. No.
Because when you said it on our podcast, it like brought it back to me, and I remember it so vividly. It was, and my family's in construction, so I remember that, and I remember my clients and just people that I really cared about. And then we also had a lot of dealerships too. So the dealerships, the floor plans were very aggressive.
Oh my
and then
God.
maybe they wouldn't always tell everyone if they sold all the cars because they needed that money for.
Yeah. Oh, it was tough. It was a weird time. But yeah, that definitely prepared me to help and give advice, because I had some pretty deep conversations with people, and it said the same thing. I'm like, hey, screw your rent. I told them, like, screw your rent. And I said, well, I don't want to say this because we're helping you drive revenue. Yeah. If you can't pay us, I'm not like, we didn't cancel a single client.
No doubt.
So we had everyone that had like balances. We froze all those balances.
Yep.
So you don't owe us anything until you can get back on your feet. We're not going to come after you because you're 10 days late or whatever it is. So all those are frozen, and then we just put everyone on a week or a cash basis. So that allowed people to stop the hemorrhaging and stay in business, because that was all about keeping people in business. And
it's a long play.
And that's what was great about this time around that ideally prepares us in the future, is that the one we had in 08, it was big money. The banks all got paid. The car, I mean, remember cash for clunkers? What the freak was that? Like, I mean, the car manufacturers got, except for Ford. I think Ford was the only one that didn't take it. Everybody took it and ran, which they had to. But it never trickled down to the little guy. And that's why I called it. I called our restaurant bailout. Because I wanted to try and the message was hard to get across, because a lot of people are thick-headed and didn't listen. But I'm like, guys, I know what you're getting ready to go through. Just trust me. I've been there, done that. Like, not many people in there. I'm 45. Not many people my age, when they're in their 30s, can say that I lost $1 million in one summer.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that was just cash. Like, it could have been close to 2 or 3 based on everything else. But
Well, thankfully, it's just money, though, right?
Just money. Money. Cash in this country is you can burn it, because it's.
Well, it's what you said. It's what you said earlier. Like, I can go make more money. You can always do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't take your spirit. They can't take your work ethic. They can't take your intelligence. Like, they can take a little bit of cash, but that's temporary.
Yep.
I feel like you were on a Braveheart speech right there. I was waiting for you to yell freedom.
Dude, I showed that to our sales team the other day.
Yeah.
Because I showed them, because I was talking about that some of them aren't practicing what they talk about and all.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know these things memorized. And I showed that. I said, was it Mel Gibson? Is that who that was?
Yeah.
I'm like, him on that horse. They're like, why am I showing this? Because it's rehearsed. Because if he comes up there and goes, guys, I think, I'm like, if he does that there's no confidence. Yep. And so I did an experiment. I said, watch, I'm going to do this. I'm going to record the first chapter of my book. I'm going to go in the studio right now. I have no notes. I have nothing prepared. Mm-hmm. And I can promise you I will deliver a seamless presentation. I think it was 16 minutes. Was it 16 minutes, Max, about that? Were you there that day? Oh, you're fired. No. Then I think it was David.
Let's
maybe.
write that in your diary.
Yeah,
That's
but it was like
about
16
that.
minutes. And we put it in a software. And this was what was crazy. It was 16 minutes. I had one time for about 5 seconds where I hesitated what I was thinking, but I spoke out the first chapter of the book. Not one not one not one because we have a software we can use. Not one.
What's the software?
What is it called?
You guys use a different one. Describe.
Describe.
That's what we use.
Yeah, Describe. I've used it too.
Does it edit the ums out?
It breaks up the video, so it makes some chops in it. But we had a guy recently we had on not on my podcast, behind the scenes, that a 5-minute conversation inside of his restaurant. He's an owner.
Yeah.
A minute and a half of ums.
So
A minute and a half.
that's amazing that you were able to go through that. And again, it's just practice what you preach.
Yeah,
And
that's what I told my guys. I was trying to show them the importance that do not let the customers you're calling about us coming to their restaurant be your practice. Mm-hmm. Let your coworkers, call restaurants in Alaska. We're not filming in Alaska anytime near soon. Call them in Australia. Test them somewhere else. Practice. It's a script. Mm-hmm. I said, I'll tell you how comfortable I am with my first chapter of the book, Attract, Build, Retain, ABR. I'll walk in the studio right now, and I put them all on Zoom, on a laptop, had the cameras on our studio lights, and I did it flawlessly. It's one of the best things I've ever done from a speech standpoint. And when we put it in the software, I didn't even do it for that reason.
Yeah.
But I came out and said, what do you guys think? Like, Jesus, dude, that's unbelievable. So was there any hesitation on anything I said there? I said that one little thing where I couldn't get the word out. No, there was nothing. It was all unedited, all raw. And after we put it in the software, I'm like, the fact that there wasn't a single or like or anything like that used in the wrong term shows you that I'm confident in what I was saying. I need you guys to be that confident because these restaurants, these independent restaurants we are calling, they need us. If you suck on the phone and don't exude confidence, they aren't going to have us come out, which will hurt their business in the long term. So stop sucking on the phone.
Yeah.
And that was and when it's funny, I showed him the Braveheart scene. And the book I'm reading, was it Jordan Belfort? One of the books I was reading at the time mentioned that scene and said one of the biggest fatal flaws in sales is you don't rehearse. Look at your favorite movie. Look at the Braveheart scene with him on the horse. That is a rehearsed line. That wasn't impromptu.
Yeah.
He said it 100 times and he crushed it. And that's why it was an emotional part of the movie.
Love it.
Well, man, guys, it's been awesome.
Yeah, no doubt,
This is
man.
my funnest podcast ever.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Glad to see you in Cleveland, first and foremost. Glad to see you ventured
I love
up
the
here.
emotion. I love the care and love for local independence. It's rare that we meet someone so in line with our vision and even got the same colors.
Passion runs deep, man.
If you could just switch the blue to green, you'd be dialed in.
Any amount of money can make that happen.
There you go.
Well, that's all we got this episode of MPTV. I'm off to the land to get some food. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.